For years, agents thought the market would save them. Now the market is exposing them. The margin for error is getting smaller for agents. For years, agents got away with bad habits. Easy money covered weak skills. Bad lead sources still worked. Poor conversion still worked. Overspending still worked. But that market is gone.
The margin for error is getting smaller for agents. Rates will probably stay the same, if not go up. The new middle is actually 200 to 400. You have to be wildly intentional. Only people that have to sell in that environment will.
There's people out here that'll take a $10,000 vacation, but they won't invest $10,000 in a lead source that can make them $100,000.
The analogy is that
your shareholders are your children.
Ooh. All right, let's do this.
Just recently got a book on the 1972-73 oil embargo that happened in the United States, and the financial ramifications of that kind of energy shock. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So I can see patterns, right? One of the things that I think agents need to be acutely aware of is that with a high degree of probability, rates will probably stay the same, if not go up. So the question is my business, are my lead sources in alignment with a market, with an environment in which 30-year fixed mortgages are 7% and remain that for an extended period of time? The margin for error is getting smaller for agents. They need to be very, very intentional and purposeful about lead sources. I still think we're in this E-shaped economy. The bottom of the E are people making 50, 60, and they're having a very hard time. In the middle section of that E is people making 100 to 180. But increasingly, they're beginning to have a difficult time. And then you have the top, let's say 5% income earners that inflation doesn't really affect them too much. If they are going to work with buyers, make sure they're working with that top part of the E, the ones that are the 5%, right? Be really diligent in pre-qualifying, making sure they have the resources and all of that, prior to entering in. If their parents are going to give them down payment money, you verify that they have it. The other issue is we've had, in the last 30 years, purchasing power of the dollar's gone down 50%. So we're playing by these numbers that aren't actually real. You ask an agent how much money you want to earn, they're like $100,000. Most people, you ask them, that has purchasing power of 50 today. What's wild about that is that the new middle is actually 200 to 400. Now, we need to know this in our pre-qualifying. We need to know this, right? And if we're going to work with that segment, and in our pre-qualification, as far as our sellers are concerned, you have to be wildly intentional. See, because, this book that I'm reading, Jose, it said something which was pretty striking. And it said that we've had 4 recessions, but they've been pretty mild, maybe lasting a year or so. And we can begin to get lulled into the false misperception that that's normal. And we can get lulled into the false misperception that everything always is going to keep steadily kind of going. That's not true. We need to be really mindful about a few things. 1, 3 to 6 months of living expenses in liquid cash. Right? If you can, make that happen as fast as possible. I would also suggest that, places to put money, if there is any extra, now is not the time to be increasing lifestyle. What I would suggest is putting it back in your business, whether that be learning how to get probate leads and acquiring, perhaps some coaching or some guidance on how to convert those opportunities, or the same thing with the off-market deals, right? Getting into a group that they can teach you how to convert. The next 12, 18 months, if you're not doing those things, it'll be increasingly more difficult for agents. I kind of think it's multiple fold. So one is making sure that you as an agent have financial stability that you can weather some friction and some inflation in terms of the cost of things. The second is being strategic with regards to the lead sources that you're focused on, because only people that have to sell in that environment will. The third is be really, really mindful of the fact that more likely than not, rates will stay where they're at, if not go up, and more likely than not, they will go up. And then the last thing, like you were saying, is just making sure that you're really intentional and purposeful about conversion.
I think the part of upsizing your lifestyle versus reinvesting back into yourself and reinvesting back into your business, there's people out here that'll take a $10,000 vacation, but they won't invest $10,000 in a lead source that can make them $100,000, or a $5,000 vacation, but they won't invest $5,000 in their business. So Aaron said this to me a long time ago. It's look, if you're a CEO of a company, of a publicly traded company, what do they expect you to do? And the reality is that you're in charge of the allocation of resources, allocation of money, and allocation of people, and allocation of time as well too. So if somebody looked at your business, they looked at your finances and the way that you're allocating the assets, I mean, what would they say? Would they be like, wow, like this person is doing some great allocation of resources, and this is definitely putting the foundation to be able to grow? Or would they say like, man, like this person's like mismanaging funds tremendously? So it could be things like even like building accessory dwelling units. That's a great allocation of resources because it's bringing in additional cash flow.
Yeah, it produces cash. So like, and I shared this with you, and I've shared this with others. Like, I'm not just saying this to you guys, like I'm doing it. Yeah. Right. Like I'm intentionally and purposefully, making decisions that will free up more cash, while simultaneously putting, funds into things that pay money, like you're saying, like whether it's an
cash flow.
Yeah, or cash flow. Because the environment that we're going into is going to require it. Right. Yeah. So in other words, like I was talking to somebody recently, and to use your analogy, it's like if you were the CFO or CEO of a company and you have shareholders, you're sitting in front of the shareholders and they're like, all right, well, what was the profit last year? And you're like, well, it's this amount. And you're like, well, where'd it go? And you're like, well, like I was flying private and I took a really nice trip to Costa Rica. And then, I got this watch that I've been wanting for a while. And then, I took my wife out on all these things and I bought her like Birkin bags and all that stuff. As shareholders, what would we do with that CEO? First of all, we would fire them. And they would probably go to jail, right? Because you're stealing from them. Well, the analogy is that your shareholders are your children. Your shareholders are your like wife, your family members that may need help and, over time. Your shareholders are like the charities that you could be like, helping and contributing to. And we don't think about it that way though, right? So I think we're heading into a season where that type of thinking needs to be the thinking. I think we've been in it, to your point, but what I see, Jose, is I see it tightening.
Objections are emotional, not logical.
Because what you're really dealing with is an emotion. People don't like to back away from something that they've already said that they would do.
Elite salespeople don't pressure people. They make people tell the truth.
Just so I'm clear, you actually got really lucky.
Why is that?
You found the #1 agent on your very first try.
High-level sales is the ability to sit in discomfort.
You have to be willing to sit in the discomfort. I have to be willing to ask these straightforward questions. Stay quiet, look them right in the face. Shut up. Don't say a word. Right. And me and Jose will demonstrate kind of how to do that. So